You have roughly the same number of hair follicles as a chimpanzee. The exact same number. So why does a chimp look like a fur coat and you don't, except for one very specific patch on your face? This isn't a small mystery. It's one of the strangest unsolved questions in human evolution, and for over a century, scientists couldn't agree on the answer. Let's start with the bigger question first, because you can't explain the beard without explaining the disappearance. Somewhere between 2 and 3 million years ago, our ancestors started losing body hair almost everywhere, not thinning it, losing it. Every other primate on the planet kept theirs, every single one. We're the outlier, and an outlier that dramatic doesn't happen by accident. The leading explanation comes down to temperature. Anthropologist Nina Jablonski has spent decades studying this, and her research points to one core problem. Early humans were becoming persistence hunters. They weren't ambush predators, they were endurance predators, chasing prey for hours in open, hot grassland until the animal collapsed from heat exhaustion. But running for hours under the African sun creates a problem. Overheating kills faster than starvation does. And thick body hair traps heat exactly when you need to release it. So the body made a trade. It swapped fur for sweat glands. Humans have more sweat glands per square inch of skin than almost any other mammal alive. Millions of them. And fur blocks sweat from evaporating efficiently. Lose the fur, and suddenly your built-in cooling system actually works. That's the theory that explains the disappearance. But it creates an even bigger problem for the beard. If losing hair was about survival, why did one patch stay? Here's where it gets interesting. The face isn't just a random exception, it's a deliberate one. Look at where humans kept meaningful hair, the scalp to protect the skull from direct sun exposure, the eyebrows and eyelashes to keep sweat and debris out of the eyes, and on men specifically, the lower face and jaw. That last one doesn't fit the cooling theory at all. A beard doesn't help you run faster or sweat better. If anything, it does the opposite. It traps heat right where blood vessels are close to the surface. So if temperature regulation explains why we lost fur everywhere else, something completely different has to explain why the beard survived. And the leading answer isn't about survival at all. It's about selection. Charles Darwin noticed this discrepancy back in 1871. He couldn't explain why a trait that offered no clear survival advantage would persist so consistently across human males. His conclusion was that it wasn't natural selection driving it. It was sexual selection. A trait that stuck around, not because it helped you survive, but because it helped you get chosen. Modern research has backed this up in ways Darwin never could have tested. Evolutionary researcher Barnaby Dixon has run multiple studies asking people to judge photos of men with different amounts of facial hair, everything from clean-shaven to full beard. The pattern that shows up again and again, heavier beards, get rated as more dominant, more mature, and more capable of defending resources or status. Here's the part that makes this make sense biologically. Facial hair growth is directly tied to testosterone and to androgen receptor density in the skin of the jaw and chin, specifically, far higher density than almost anywhere else on the body. Which means a full, thick beard isn't just decoration. It's a visible readout of hormonal signaling that was happening under the skin the whole time. Ancient humans couldn't run a blood test, but they could look at a man's face and get a rough read on him instantly. That's a massive advantage in a small tribal group where you needed to size up allies and rivals fast, long before you ever spoke a word to them. And there's a second layer to this. Some researchers argue the beard also worked as passive protection, a small buffer against blows to the jaw during the physical conflicts that were far more common in ancient social hierarchies than they are today. Not armor exactly, but enough of a cushion to matter when your only weapons were your own hands. So you end up with two separate forces acting on the same patch of skin. One force stripped hair away almost everywhere because heat was the enemy of survival. Another force kept it in one very specific place because on that one part of the body, hair wasn't fighting your biology. It was advertising it. That's why the answer to why do men have beards isn't really about hair at all. It's about information. For nearly the entire span of human history, before spoken language was reliable, before you could ask someone their intentions, your face was already telling a story to every person who looked at you. Which brings us to now. You probably shave that story off most mornings without thinking twice about it. A few strokes of a razor, and a signal that took millions of years to evolve is gone in under 2 minutes. Some men spend just as much effort growing it back out, styling something their ancestors never had a choice about growing in the first place. Either way, you're not just managing hair. You're consciously editing a signal your body has been broadcasting since before you could speak. Your ancestors didn't get to choose. You do it every single morning without even realizing that's what you're doing.